on and speak into them. I'd like to welcome you and call to order the Port Orchard City Council meeting for August 8th. And I'd like to remind us of our guiding principles and the actions we're about to take tonight. Are we raising the bar? Are we honoring the past but not living in the past? Are we building connections with outside partners? And is the decision-making process positively impacting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Wallace, I haven't heard from Councilmember Cacciardi. Should we add him to the excusal?
That would be appropriate.
That would be appropriate? Okay, so we've got a couple things, modifications to the agenda then.
Mr. Mayor, I would certainly like to include Mr. Cacciardi into the consent agenda. And we also have a resolution talking about the appointment of an additional hearing examiner that I think would be appropriate to add to the full discussion of business items.
Okay, so Councilmember Clausen is proposing to add two items to this evening's agenda. First would be item I on the consent agenda, the excusal of Councilmember Cacciardi, and we'll assume for personal reasons. And then also an item G to the business, which would be a resolution regarding the appointment of a new hearing examiner.
And second that.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen and a second by Councilmember Rosapepe. And no, I just got word from Sean that he's not going to be able to make it tonight. So, all right. So we have a motion, a second to add those items. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And we have Councilmember Lucarelli online also. All right. We have our agenda. Any other modifications to this evening's agenda? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Rosapepe.
Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Rosapepe, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the agenda as modified. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the agenda has been set for this evening. We're to our first citizen comment period, and that's for any items on this evening's agenda. There's a second citizen comment period at the end of the meeting. Anyone wishing to address the council on any items on this evening's agenda, you can step to the microphone, and if you're online, you would use the raise your hand feature, and the clerk would recognize you and bring you into the meeting. All right. I am not seeing anybody, so I will close the first citizen comment period. We have a consent. Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the modified consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the consent agenda has been approved. We have a presentation tonight and from SCJ Group related to the Bethel Phase 1 project. And it must be the gentleman there in the first row. So come on up to the microphone and let's hear about it.
All right. Hi, I'm Patrick Holm with SCJ Alliance. I'm the consultant project manager for the Bethel Road Improvement Project and have been working with Chris Hammer at the city as counterpart. He's on vacation, so not here with us tonight. And then I was going to speak to
And if you could just try to get a little closer or project a little more into the microphone so everybody can hear you a little better.
Certainly. Yeah, so this is just an intro slide of the Bethel Phase 1 Street Improvement Project, and already introduced myself, and so jumping right into it. As you all know, the Bethel-Sedgwick subarea is growing and has grown since the 2018 corridor study. The 2018 corridor study was completed in order to plan for that growth. so that growth was strategic and developed along the corridor with certain characteristics in mind. And so we, as the phase one, so as part of that corridor study, it was broken into 5 phases. And I believe there's elements of phase 5 that are currently under design as well, but we, SCJ Alliance, are the consultant on board for phase 1 of the corridor, which extends from just north of Salmonberry to just south of the Blueberry-Bethel intersection, and then also includes Ramsey, which is a parallel road along the corridor. And just some items to revisit from the 2018 corridor study is that there was public involvement and a whole planning process regarding the Bethel Road corridor and Sedgwick sub-area. And along Bethel Road, the decision or the conclusion for the Bethel Road corridor in that corridor study was that it would be what was called in that report a commercial access corridor, and which was a one-directional lane in each direction. So 1 lane, a bike lane, buffered, landscape buffer, and then a sidewalk for pedestrians. And that was based on public feedback, and the public feedback was I'll say overwhelmingly for a calmer corridor and more walkable corridor. So 78% of respondents said they wanted a commercial access corridor or a multimodal corridor for the Bethel Road corridor. And so that's how the conceptual designs of that report were put together, and that's what we were building off of on the phase 1 design as well. And we'll touch on some of the kind of nuance of that we're getting into as we're undertaking design and the alternatives that we're getting into at this point. And one of the elements that I wanted to touch on was when public feedback was solicited in the 2018 corridor study, they were asking for kind of a binary, to some extent, of would you like to see this corridor? And this question was posed for Sedgwick as well, kind of, do you want to see this corridor as a commuter corridor or more pedestrian, walkable, multimodal corridor, including transit and bicycles and things like that? And as mentioned, the feedback was that the commercial access corridor was the preferred corridor. And kind of the trade-off is if there was 2 directional lanes in each way, so a 4-lane corridor, it would certainly provide a commuter style corridor and more traffic flow, but it would not be in line with that public feedback. So that is an option that can go forward, but it would kind of change the characteristic of the corridor if that was the foot forward. So, and so work to date on the phase 1 project started with data collection late last year of 2022. So we have our topographic and boundary survey of the corridor completed, and we are wrapping up geotechnical investigation as well as critical areas investigation. And touching on critical areas, the main critical area factor, and I'll touch on this a little bit more when we talk about the Salmonberry intersection concepts, but the primary critical area is at the southwest and northwest corner of the Salmonberry-Bethel Road intersection. There's a wetland/pond complex on the southwest, and there is a clogged culvert underneath Salmonberry at that location, and those things combined present an issue for the Blackjack Creek complex, as well as just to the southwest corner in that wetland complex area. And moving forward from that, the traffic validation was one of our first steps, was taking a look at one element of the 2018 corridor study was taking a look at what the traffic along the corridor would look like and what would the growth look like. And so when we were looking at our design, we wanted to validate, is that still the case with 2020 and the pandemic and virtual work? Some of the traffic patterns have shifted since then, so we wanted to see what did the traffic data look like from 2018, what does it look like now? And so we revisited some of those revisited those intersection evaluations and corridor evaluations. And the notable change or difference was in the 2018 corridor study, the Salmonberry intersection was shown as a multi-lane roundabout, and that was due, level of service was changing right at the kind of the peak of the 20-year period. And so when we re-evaluated it with some updated growth and updated traffic counts, that period the level of service was able to be achieved using a single lane roundabout. So we haven't moved forward with that design, and that's something that those concepts I'll present in shortly. But what it means is that a single lane roundabout could accommodate the 20-year traffic projection at that intersection, whereas in the 2018 corridor study, it was assumed that would have to be a multi-lane roundabout. So that was the main item that we found when we went to validate the traffic counts for the corridor. And building on that, we're now in the process of developing those roundabout concept designs at Blueberry and at Salmonberry. The Blueberry concept is pretty straightforward. There's the built environment around it, and there's not a whole lot of options with the 3-lane roundabout of how that layout could be placed. So I'll show the concept of what that looks like. But for Salmonberry concepts, there's a few options that we have been discussing between SCJ Alliance and the city, and we met with the Transportation Committee a couple weeks back to kind of show what options we had, and kind of got some preliminary feedback, and that's what I have tonight is based on feedback from that committee meeting. And so on screen is the Blueberry concept, which is a single lane, 3-leg roundabout. The leg to the west connecting to Blueberry, and then north and south, and it provides the separated, it's hard to see on screen maybe from your perspective, but the green strip along the road is a landscape buffer separating the sidewalk and the road, and then there's also bike lanes on the north and south on Bethel. And then this is the first concept at Salmonberry. So this concept is showing the original design that was included in the 2018 corridor study, which is the multi-lane roundabout at Salmonberry. As you can see, it's multi-lane on the north-south legs, I should point out. So there's 2 legs going south and 2 lanes going south and 2 lanes going north. And largely that was to provide turning movements, and so that it wouldn't provide queuing as people were waiting to find gaps to make left turns. And also one of the elements of the multi-lane was to provide a transit stop for Kitsap Transit, and so that they could provide a far side stop in the multi-lane roundabout and then merge as they were getting back in line with the Bethel Road traffic. When we were evaluating this, based on our critical areas findings, that wasn't included in the 2018 corridor study was the wetland complex on the southwest corner and that clogged culvert. And so when I'm referring to the culvert impacts, it's the clogged culvert that crosses under Salmonberry, and then the critical areas are the critical areas to the southwest where that wetland pond complex currently exists. And doing this multi-lane concept, it will impact both the northwest and southwest corner and impact those critical areas, which can happen. It just adds cost and it adds project duration. And so if we're doing, and I should add the culvert is fish-bearing culvert to the Blackjack Creek complex. So we would have to go through all of the design framework and permitting framework for making that a fish passable culvert, and the timelines and costs that would involve. So when I'm listing out the design, original corridor study design and the impacts, the culvert impacts, the critical areas impacts, and the right-of-way impacts are all kind of orbiting around the impacts of that culvert and the impacts of that wetland complex. So it's not an infeasible design by any means. It's just a design that would cost extra, and it would take more time. And when we get to the end, I could show you the compared cost. And so the cost on screen is for the total phase 1 cost. It's not just the cost of the Salmonberry intersection. But the original 2018 corridor cost for phase 1 was just under $12 million. So I think it was like $11.9 million. And with property value growth and adding in the culvert cost and the increased permitting and design timeline for that, this, in the full, kind of this design, that grew from 2018 to 2023 to about $17 million. So if we were doing the multi-lane roundabout at Salmonberry, the total phase one cost would be approximately $17 million per our estimate. And so with the realization or validation of traffic that we can do a four-legged single-lane roundabout, we went to the drawing board to see, can we do a four-legged single-lane roundabout without impacting the culvert and the parcels to the northwest and southwest? And the answer was, we can. It's the leg on the west leg that goes west to, or the West Salmonberry leg, is a little more reduced than we would do on a traditional roundabout, but we can do it because of the limited nature of what's going west on Salmonberry. It pretty much dead ends maybe 1,000 feet to the west. So you're not getting high volumes of traffic. You're not concerned as much about cars interacting with pedestrians, because it's just they're going to be coming slow. They're going to be expecting an intersection. So we were able to limit it before the culvert. And one important fact to distinguish between a multi-lane and a single lane, I guess first, roundabouts are extremely safer than a signalized intersection or a stop-controlled intersection because they reduce the amount of conflict points. And so they reduce down to a single-digit conflict point, meaning you're only looking at the pedestrian as you enter, cars as you enter, and then pedestrian as you exit, and the cars as you exit. That being said, single-lane roundabouts are demonstrably safer than multi-lane roundabouts just because you have 2 lanes when you enter. So for an example, if you have 2 lanes as you're entering, one car stops for a pedestrian, the car in the other lane doesn't see a pedestrian walking across the street, and they go full speed through the roundabout. They could be potentially hitting that blocked pedestrian. Also, you just have you have more friction and weave when you have a multi-lane roundabout. So in the scheme of things, when we're talking about roundabout safety, the single lane roundabout is the paramount of roundabout safety. The multi-lane roundabout is also high level of safety, but not as safe as a single lane roundabout for those reasons. So this 4-leg single lane roundabout concept is able to reduce impact to the culvert. It's able to reduce impacts to the northwest and southwest corners. And it's also takes advantage of the single lane safety component. One component that we would need to discuss with Kitsap Transit is this is a single lane roundabout, whereas in the corridor study, we had a multi-lane that allowed the transit to stop on the far side. That would have to when you're doing a single lane roundabout, you switch the transit stop to the near side so that you don't clog the roundabout when the bus stops on the far side. Like if it was to stop on the far side, you would clog up the roundabout. So that would be something we'd have to discuss with Kitsap Transit just to make sure that they were okay if we opted to proceed with the 4-leg single lane option. And as you note, the cost on screen for phase 1 total cost is about $13.5 million for the 4-legged single lane roundabout versus the $17 million. All with the perspective of the original 2008 total cost at $12 million. And then another concept that we were taking a look at is what would the roundabout look like if there was the access to Salmonberry to the west was eliminated or cut off. And what that would do for the neighborhood to the west, they would need to use Ramsey, and they would have to take Ramsey down to Blueberry if they were going north. And if they were going south, they would have to go either to Blueberry or go Ramsey all the way down to Sedgwick. This, what I didn't mention in the other 2 options is the southeast corner is currently a parcel owned by the city. So as much of the parcel that we can use is less impact for the city and just cheaper right-of-way acquisition in general. So the three-legged roundabout allows us to shift the center of the circle so that we could take advantage more of the city-owned parcel, which is harder to do when you're doing a 4-legged intersection because you have to make sure all the entry points are consistent and meet the design speeds. One of the concerns that was raised about the three-legged intersection is, would we still be able to maintain emergency access down Salmonberry to the west if needed? And so what we took a look at is we would be able to create, and there's other ways that we could get creative about this, but currently shown, there's a little bit of a gravel pad back there just to show some contrast. But in our vision for this, you would have a depressed rolled curb, maybe like an 1 or 2 inch rolled curb that was essentially like a driveway that could allow emergency vehicles to pass, but would largely be a barrier to other traffic. And there's elements that can be combined with to make sure that that traffic was restricted to emergency vehicles. So we feel that we can maintain a emergency access as needed if that was, if that came up as part of the three-legged roundabout intersection, if this was the design concept that we moved forward with. And so this one, like the four-legged, is the highest safety. There's a reduced to no culvert impact, but it does reroute traffic on the west side to Blueberry and Ramsey. And because we're doing less construction as part of this roundabout, it's cheaper, it's $12.5 million. So this option is closest to the original 2018 cost estimate. And so those are the three concepts that we're currently evaluating. And
Would this last alternative take into consideration that we would likely need the construction costs to improve Ramsey, since now all of those homes now have to access down Ramsey versus Salmonberry? Was that included in this
yes,
cost?
so all the phase one cost included improvements of Ramsey, because as a, not in order, but a way to make the traffic flow during construction much smoother, having Ramsey improved for doing work at Blueberry, like the Blueberry roundabout or even the Salmonberry roundabout, we were including that cost as a detour if need be.
So that's built into all of these
yeah,
costs?
phase one, all three concepts have the Ramsey improvement cost built in.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Patrick?
Yep.
At the transportation meeting, we discussed a couple of things that I didn't see addressed here.
Okay.
In regards to a single roundabout, has there been any discussion with having pullouts for Kitsap Transit? Has that been?
Yeah, so one of the things that was articulated in the 2018 corridor study is that Kitsap Transit didn't like pullouts because they felt effectively trapped when they pull out into the pullout. And if you have a lot of traffic going, it's really hard for their drivers to get back to in lane. So I went back and revisited the corridor study after that conversation and found that data. And they said that they would not want pullouts as an option. It was far side or near side stops at the roundabouts.
So we're going to be stopping traffic theoretically at the entrance to the one-way single lane roundabout for transit drop-offs and pickups?
Correct, and which is a scenario at the Blueberry roundabout that would happen independently of the Salmonberry. But yeah, but you are correct, it would stop the traffic flow. Yep.
Great, and the second thing we talked about was perhaps southbound on Bethel having a exit only onto Salmonberry. So there was no entrance into the roundabout from Salmonberry, but just an exit to Salmonberry, which would improve our emergency access to those homes to the west side. And we were hoping and thinking that it would not affect that sensitive area.
Yeah, so I think this was the quick workup for this, and so have a high level of confidence that we could get, if we wanted a paved turnout, that we could make that work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
But I don't think in the body of work that you guys had the transportation committee that the alternative was presented with the abbreviated Salmonberry Street, because I don't know that we thought we could get that without touching the culvert. Because I don't believe, this is the first I've seen this option.
Yes, so we took a deeper dive at it in the last week, and were able to shorten it up, because originally we were showing that 4-lane.
Right, which we knew we couldn't get
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
2-lane road through there because
Yeah.
of the increase.
Yep.
Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, I have a few questions, I guess. You referenced this clogged culvert a number of times, and I guess obviously that's a challenge or a problem for that community. Do we just bury our head in the sand and ignore it, or how is that going to be resolved? Maybe it's an issue separate from the roundabout, but it's something
Yeah.
that I would
Yeah.
assume is going to have to get resolved some way.
Yes, so it would hypothetically needs to be resolved at some point. What not touching it does is it doesn't tie it to this project timeline. So what we would be
Yeah,
doing doesn't preclude any improvement of it. It just wouldn't include it in the project timeline that we're doing now.
And the
Yeah.
clog in the culvert isn't in our roadway, it's on private property
Okay.
farther to the north.
All right, I guess I don't understand well enough where it flows, but okay. The issue that you raised about this culvert potentially needing to be designed to be a passage, fish passage. And I guess in my mind, I'm wondering, there's additional funds that the legislature just approved this past session that deals with beyond what they're doing with improving fish passageways that would be available to local jurisdictions. So I was just, in my mind, I'm wondering is that if we were to include that, would that give us access to additional funds that might help us cover this project? But that's for another discussion. The other question that I have is that you looked at, obviously there's been a lot of changes in traffic flow. You mentioned COVID as being a major influencer on that, but you took a look at kind of the updated numbers, and I'm assuming that you also kind of looked at what the updated future developments in that general area. I know at one time, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but wasn't there like a frontage road that would connect Walmart through Home Depot and connect into Salmonberry?
Yeah, that is still part of the plan, and we're currently negotiating with Home Depot for the Home Depot store to go in, which would include the construction of that frontage road.
My question ultimately was that additional traffic that's going to be put out on Salmonberry considered when you did your traffic analysis update?
We did take a look at that
Okay.
additional connection, and if anything, it's like a pressure release off the intersection. So any sort of parallel networking that's created with that development, it actually provides relief at Salmonberry. So the Salmonberry-Bethel Road intersection would operate better as that corridor develops any sort of parallel connectivity.
Okay. I can understand that it would relieve pressure at, instead of just having one access point down, say the Walmart signalized intersection, you would split the demand. Some go there, some would come out on Salmonberry.
Yep.
Hence the whole issue of the frontage road concept. So, okay. Thank you.
Councilmember Rose Pepe.
First of all, thank you for bringing this to us. It's great to see things start to gel, so to speak. My question is, you touched about it a little bit, and I understand the safety issues, concerns of a 2-lane approaching the roundabout. But my question really resolves is, does traffic flow improve if you have a 2-lane where one only goes to a right turn only, while the other lane continues around? Because I am concerned about traffic.
So definitely a multi-lane roundabout, traffic-wise, can operate better than a single lane. And when we modeled it, it operates better. Both operate at a level of service that's, I'll say, passing, or they both operate well. One of the things with the single-lane corridor is that at some point, the capacity of the corridor is limited to the single-lane nature of the corridor. And so certainly in 20 years, the analysis was showing that both versions were starting to receive friction. The multi-lane receives less friction because of the turning elements, but the single lane was still performing. But what you would see is that at some point after 20 years, maybe 30 years, 40 years, is that corridor with a single lane will get to a capacity that the single lane can take. And so it would just be, does the city want that corridor to maintain as a walkable kind of connectivity corridor? That's not to say that could be achieved with the multi-lane roundabout and it's still single lane, but to answer your question, the multi-lane will perform better.
In the long run?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I forgot to mention this, but you prompted my memory here. Thank you, sir. When I look at the 4-lane with 2 of the lanes being 4 and 2 of them being single, it's exactly what we have on Tremont at the Sauk Kitsap Boulevard, where I know initially we had 2 lanes coming in off of that boulevard, that we had some issues that we squeezed down to 1 lane, but now that's what we have is 2 of the incoming roadways is, single lane in each direction, and Tremont is 2 lanes in each direction, so it works there.
Part of the discussion too, you guys were very disappointed that we weren't going to get to this till 2026. And we're trying to deliver, we have $10 million in funding.
Right.
And we're already we were at 12 and now we're at a single lane, we're at 13 and a half probably, and the other version's 17. We'll compete extremely well for a couple $1 million in funding from the Transportation Improvement Board. Beyond that, it's extremely difficult to get more than a couple $1 million in funding for these types of transportation projects. It's just your success rate.
Is there current funding federal or state?
None. It's our money. It's
It's our 10?
10 million's our money, the 1/10 measure that we passed. And so we're trying to deliver on a project
Yeah, no, I
with local
appreciate it.
dollars. And if we federalize it or, add things to it, we will further delay the delivery and the cost. So
Okay,
Councilman-
so I'm not sure we need to get into this right now, but, why not? So, John, then part of the question does come up, what Mark brought up about Kitsap Transit. And then the other part of the question could be, because we're financially constrained, and I appreciate that, Mayor, bringing us back to reality, is it something where we could possibly then at least design this to put the additional lanes in, for that, at a later date? That's just a question, doesn't need to be answered right now. Thank you.
And really, the intent tonight, too, was put this information out to the public. We're going to start a public process, and there's survey work that's going to be happening over your guys' summer break. And when you guys reconvene in September, we're going to have that data and then be able to continue this discussion and make some decisions, because we need to get these guys going on. Here's the alternative. Go get it designed, because the goal really is to go to construction in 2026 if we can.
This is great stuff.
All right.
I'm excited to see it. I agree. It's great stuff, and this is progress. Even on a piece of paper, it's progress.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
All right, we have no public hearings scheduled, but we do have a number of business items, and we'll get to those. First is item A, which is a resolution approving a contract with Stellar J Corporation for the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project. Jackie Brown, this is yours.
The city identified the need for capacity and redundancy reliability improvements at the Marina Pump Station. Staff then identified a scope of work to address these issues referred to as the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project. On February 19th, 2019, Port Orchard City Council adopted ordinance numbered 007-19, approving a contract and accepting Department of Ecology Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan agreement number WQC 2019 POORPW 00025 for $4,100,000 for the project. On July 14th, 2021, Amendment 1 to the agreement was executed, which increased the loan amount to $13 million. The City Council then authorized design work for the project by a design consultant. Pursuant to Resolution Number 036-22, as amended, Section 5, Bid Procedures, the city's Public Works Department, working with the design consultant, prepared an invitation to bid for the project. The invitation to bid was published in the Kitsap Sun and Daily Journal of Commerce on June 9, 2023, and June 16, 2023, and on the city's webpage. On July 18, 2023, by the 2 p.m. bid deadline, the city clerk received 2 sealed bids. After confirming that there were no objections made and there were no challenges to the public opening process, the sealed bids were opened and read aloud by the city clerk. The city clerk then prepared a bid tabulation form, and the Public Works Department prepared a bid evaluation form, including applicable taxes, labor, equipment, materials, and fees, resulting in the initial determination that Stellar J Corporation's bid was a qualified, responsible, and responsive bid. The final bid amounts were as follows. Prospect Construction, total bid $17,897,447.64. Stellar J Corporation, total bid $14,887,944.28. On July 19, 2023, the city's Public Works Department staff completed the MRSC mandatory bidder responsibility checklist and confirmed that Stellar J Corporation's bid was a qualified, responsible, and responsive bid. Public Works Department also reviewed all materials and confirmed that the bidding requirements for this public work have been followed. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with Stellar J Corporation for the Marina Pump Station Improvements Project in the amount of $14,887,944.28.
Councilmember Clausen.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract in a form acceptable to the city attorney with Stellar J Corporation for the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project in the amount of $14,887,944.28.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Clausen, a second by Councilmember Rosapepe. Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things that I would like to say, and, I mentioned progress a minute ago with the drawings, and this is progress again, which is exciting. But I'm not sure that the community really realizes that pump station, first off, all of the wastewater for the city of Port Orchard goes into that facility and then gets pumped out to the treatment plant in Annapolis. So you can only imagine that's a pretty key element in the collection system for sewage in the entire city of Port Orchard, number one. Number two, that facility is 40 years old. That was put in 1983. Now, we have made some pump improvements and we've made some controller improvements between 83 and now. But that thing's 40 years old, and being such a key component to the utility system, our wastewater utility system, I'm excited to see this going forward. And this is gonna, I think, set the stage for this city for, I hope, another 40 years before whomever has to deal with it, so.
Another exciting element to it is the first of many projects related to our downtown redevelopment and projects.
It is.
Because it's the infrastructure that goes in the ground underneath all this stuff. And we can't move forward with the Kitsap Bank project and the community center project until we have the infrastructure we need to support these projects. So it's a big deal. Councilmember Rosapepe?
John, you put it very eloquently, and I know Cindy's out there, also has championed this project coming to conclusion, so it's much appreciated. But I'd like to point out also that the fiscal impact is the city has the money for this project. And this is, we've been saving for it, we've been planning for it.
We got a low interest
And we
loan.
got a
And, yeah, but I mean,
got a low interest loan.
but we have the money to do this project.
Yes, we do.
And that's great. And so moving forward, it's good for the city and good for the residents.
There's a lot of work that has gone into this project
Staff.
to get us to this point.
Yep.
That hasn't been free also.
Yep,
So
and
I
staff,
agree with you.
staff should be commended also.
Yes.
And we get 2% low interest loan at 13 million, and then the remainder of the funding is coming from our ARPA dollars, so, which don't have any cost to us, so. But, 2%, the way construction costs are going up, to be able to knock this out and fix the appreciation is going up far greater than that every year, so it's a good deal.
And to get such a great bid for this project.
Yes. Yes, we're very pleased. Other comments or questions? Okay, you'll be voting on the approval of a contract with Stellar J Corporation for the Marina Pump Station Improvement Project. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the contract is approved. We're at item B now, adoption of a resolution approving a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption with Tom and Lori LLC. Mr. Bond, this is you.
Yes, good evening, Council. The city has received an application from Tom Myers Jr. on behalf of Tom and Lori LLC for a multifamily tax exemption agreement for the construction of 99 new apartment units in 2 buildings on a 2.49 acre site located in a designated target area adjacent to Southeast Sedgwick Road and Ramsey Road. The developer is seeking an 8-year tax exemption and their project includes structured parking in accordance with POMC 3.480403. A multifamily tax exemption agreement has been prepared by the city attorney to be approved by resolution. And the multifamily tax exemption program exempts certain new converted rehabilitated multifamily development from ad valorem property taxation for either 8 or 12 years from the issuance of certification of exemption, depending on whether a project includes affordable housing. This project is a market rate housing project, but it is a mixed use project with parking below the structure in a small commercial space. And I should note that the commercial space in this project will be subject immediately to property tax once it's constructed. It's only the multifamily portion of the building that would be exempt. The staff recommendation is to approve a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign a multifamily limited property tax exemption agreement between the city and Tom and Lori LLC as presented.
Councilmember Rosa Pepe.
Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept and sign a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption agreement between the city and Tom and Lori LLC as presented.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Rosa Pepe, and I'll give the second to Councilmember Lucarelli online. All right. Comments or questions? Councilmember Clausen.
I have a comment, not specifically about this project, but more this whole issue of tax exempt, so I don't know if it's appropriate to bring it up now or later.
Go ahead. I know that it was staff's intent. We were going to wait until after we got our housing action plan completed to revisit the multifamily tax exemption program and make modifications to it, in particular to the 12-year that to make it more meaningful. I'm not certain where that, I know that Nick has lost another planner, so it's fitting that body of work into his taxed staff right now. So we can maybe speak to that, Nick, where that's in your work plan.
We had some discussion of the recommendation that in the housing action plan at our July land use committee meeting. There was a mixed I think the feedback from the committee was pretty mixed, and it needs to go to full council discussion. And so our intent is to bring it either in September or October when there is room on the work study agenda for a full council discussion, and to kind of go through the recommendations in our housing action plan. And we've started drafting code changes for MFTE, but we really need clarity on the direction that the full council wants to go, because it sounds like there are a variety of opinions on this.
Councilmember Clausen.
Yes, great minds, because essentially that's what that Mr. Teneri and I were before the meeting chatting about this in general, and he and I agree that it would be nice if we could bring this whole issue back to a work study to where we could talk about it. I would like to also look at what has it done for the city to this point to see how many units and for how long, and what is the market rate. So great minds, you're already ahead of me. I didn't have a specific work study in mind, but just bringing it to a work study at some point in the future. So thank you.
And in terms of what it's done for the city, I can report I came across some interesting data in an appraisal related to an apartment project in the city where they're dedicating land to the city and had to provide a value for their property. But as I was reading through the appraisal, I actually found data showing for the first time in 10 years that market rent in the city has declined by, in Q4 of 2022, market rent for our area declined by about 5.5%. It's the first ever decline in the last decade. And so I think from a basic microeconomic standpoint, supply is finally is finally hitting the market in such a way that it is making landlords compete a little bit more for tenants. And I think just increasing supply, whether they're under the 12-year exemption or not, is starting to have an impact on rent.
No, I agree, and I think, the whole idea of what market rate really is, and is it market rate affordable? And, in my mind, this is probably not an alternative for the homeless community, but maybe it will reduce the number of homeless because it might be a step between going homeless and actually being on the street. So, anyway, I thank you. I'm looking forward to having a discussion, a work study.
Questions? Go ahead, Councilmember Trey.
Yeah, Nick, since the inception of this program, how many developers have taken advantage of it?
This would be our 5th approval. Only one of the projects has been completed. I think there are 2 currently under construction and 1 in for permitting right now. But I'd have to check the exact status. But I think Plisco Apartments at the corner of Plisco and Mile Hill has a 12-year exemption, and that they've framed the first building, but it's probably 12 months from completion. The Overlook Apartments was completed in 2017 or 2016 and had a 12-year exemption. And then there was the Pottery Creek Apartments next to Fred Meyer that received an exemption. And I think the Blueberry Apartments, which just broke ground, has the other exemption besides, and that's an 8-year as well. So I think it's in the neighborhood of 250 total apartments have been built taking advantage of this program.
Horizon that you're aware of?
Well, that's the other thing the Land Use Committee discussed, is there is a request to amend the map because there's a project that would like to use this program that's currently not within one of our mapped areas. And so there's at least one group interested in seeking this, but it would require code changes before they would qualify.
Thank you.
Councilmember Chang.
Yeah, I look forward to the work study because there are a couple things we do need to talk about. One is the handout from Commerce, and thank you, Nick, for including the link to it. It discusses tax shift. So what's going on is either there is a tax shift or it's foregone revenue. And so that's something that we need to discuss. What are the implications of both? And with both of them, they get more complicated because, for example, for foregone revenue, it's not just the city losing or potentially losing revenue. It's the other taxing districts, such as the school and the fire. But the other point is that we do have now with Pottery Creek, if you look at their tax statement online, you can see they've been assessed at $10 million, and their contribution for 2023 would be $1,498, $1,500 to the city. In contrast, Haven Apartments that we all remember at Ruby Creek on Cedric, that's a slightly higher, assessed at $14 million. Their contribution to the city taxes is $18,000. So there's kind of a gap of, which is something that we would probably need to talk about. But so that concern me is like, what is the city either foregoing, or if we're not foregoing, are we actually shifting it to all the other existing? So that's something that we'll want to address.
And we need to have that conversation, but I would also argue if the development didn't happen, we wouldn't be getting any revenue because we just have a piece of raw land.
And we can certainly discuss, like, is the sales tax revenue that we're getting from an increased population offsetting the revenue that the other taxing districts are also losing? I'm surprised they're not weighing in. I mean, the school district.
And it's not just sales tax, though. It's park impact fees, it's traffic impact fees to build our roads, as well, there's a number of sources of revenue. Councilmember Clausen.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't want to derail us here and discuss it. I just wanted to get it into a work study where we have the time to talk about all of the pros and cons and the benefits. And I think these are all valid points that are valuable, and I look forward to that discussion.
Rose
Yeah,
Pepe.
not trying to belabor it, but John, I think you brought up a good question because we've been looking for data. We've always had the discussion, how do we get, when we're talking about more affordable housing, how are we able to check on it? And it was, and I won't speak for everybody in land use, but it was definitely one, we need to bring this to the full council to have this discussion, to look at this program, see if it's valid, and do we want to make any changes? And I know this puts pressure on Nick's operation, but we want to do this sooner than later.
Councilmember Chang?
Oh, specifically to this project, and I know it's hard having the different conversations. Ironically, I do like this project offering structured parking. It is one of the first, I believe, in the city for apartment buildings. It's certainly the first MFTE, potential exempt candidate, that's offering something, as opposed to some that I feel have not.
Yeah, garden apartments versus structured parking.
Yeah, so
It's a big lift.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Further questions or statements? All right, you'll be voting on the adoption of a resolution approving a multifamily housing limited property tax exemption with Tom and Lori LLC. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No, I'm opposed.
One nay. The resolution passes. We're to item C, adoption of resolution approving a contract with JMG Constructors, Inc. for the McCormick Woods Well Number 11 site improvement projects. Jackie Brown, this is yours.
The McCormick Woods Well Number 11 Site Improvement Project was identified as a priority task for the City of Port Orchard's Public Works Department. Accordingly, on July 27, 2021, Port Orchard City Council accepted a pre-construction loan to begin design of the project from the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, as managed by the Washington State Department of Health Office of Drinking Water. On April 26, 2022, the Port Orchard City Council adopted ordinance number 012-22, approving a contract and accepting a Drinking Water State Revolving Fund construction loan managed by DOH in the amount $8,080,000 for the continuation of the design and the construction of the multi-phased McCormick Woods Well 11 site improvement project. City Council authorized a design consultant to prepare the design for the project. Pursuant to Resolution Number 036-22, Section 5 bid procedures, the city's Public Works Department, working in coordination with the city's design consultant, prepared an invitation to bid for the project. The invitation to bid was published in the Kitsap Sun and the Daily Journal of Commerce on June 16, 2023, and June 23, 2023, and on June 16, 2023. The bid documents were uploaded to the Washington Builders Exchange and the city's webpage. On July 25, 2023, by the 10:30 a.m. bid deadline, the city clerk received 4 sealed bids. After confirming that there were no objections made and that there were no challenges to the public opening process, the sealed bids were opened and read aloud by the city clerk. The city clerk then prepared a bid tabulation form, and the Public Works Department prepared a bid evaluation form, including applicable taxes, labor, equipment, material, and fees, resulting in the initial determination that JMG Constructors LLC was the lowest qualified, responsible, and responsive bid. The final bid amounts were as follows. Award Construction Incorporated, $6,525,428.67. JMG Constructors LLC, $5,996,532.46. Pacific Civil and Infrastructure Inc., $6,046,940.53, and Prospect Construction Inc., $7,656,541.51. On July 26, 2023, the city's Public Works Department staff completed the MRSC mandatory bidder responsibility checklist and confirmed that JMG Constructors LLC's bid was a qualified, responsible, and responsive bid. The Public Works Department also reviewed all materials and confirmed that the bidding requirements for this public work have been followed. Staff recommends that the City Council adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with JMG Constructors LLC for the McCormick Woods Well 11 site improvement project in the amount of $5,996,532.46.
Councilmember Lucarelli.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract in a form acceptable to the city attorney with JMG Constructors, LLC, for the McCormick Woods Well Number 11 site improvement project in the amount of $5,996,532.46, applicable tax included.
Seconded.
Motion by Councilmember Lucarelli and a second by Councilmember Clausen. Comments or statements? Another. Councilmember Rose Pepe, go ahead.
Just 2 things. One, another improvement in our infrastructure, which is huge. And second of all, that even with a loan, as I've been corrected, we have the money in our budget to move forward. And it was well within budget, so the bid. So kudos to staff again and to the mayor.
Much needed water out in the McCormick Woods areas, but that's what this well project is. And Jackie's gonna get us water rights for those other wells. I'm confident of it before she retires.
I don't know about that before I retire, but I'm working on it.
All right, other comments or questions? You all right? You'll be voting on a resolution approving a contract with JMG Constructors, Inc. for the McCormick Woods Well Number 11 Site Improvement Project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the resolution and the contract are approved. We're to item D, approval of change order number 1 to contract number 040-23 with Miles Resources LLC for the 2023 citywide asphalt repair project. Jackie, this is you again.
The city needs to routinely repair asphalt on city streets. On May 9, 2023, following a procurement process consistent with state law and the city's procurement policies adopted by Resolution 036-22 as amended, the city executed contract number C040-23 with Miles Resources LLC for the 2023 citywide asphalt repair project. During the course of the project, additional associated roadwork was identified as necessary, including additional pavement grinding, roadway markings, and loops for traffic lights. This change order would increase the contract by $93,135.22 for a contract total of $960,764.82. There is funding in the 2023-2024 biennial budget to accommodate this change order. Staff recommends the City Council authorize the mayor to execute change order number 1 to contract number C040-23 with Miles Resources LLC for the 2023 citywide asphalt repair project to increase the contract by $93,135.22 for a new contract total of $960,764.82.
Councilor McClellan, I know how passionate you are about paving, so I'm going to call on you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to authorize the mayor to execute change order number 1 to contract number C040-23 with Miles Resources LLC for the 2023 citywide asphalt repair project and to add an amount of $93,135.22 for a new contract total of $960,764.82, applicable taxes included, for the citywide asphalt repair project.
Seconded.
A motion by Councilor McClellan, a second by Councilmember Trenary. You guys approved $1 million in funding, and we were $140,000, or yeah, $140,000 short of spending all of it. So we went back out and identified a section of roadway we thought was in extremely poor condition, which is that segment of roadway in front of the Lowe's traffic light, from the state's responsibility down to where it was, the prior paving was done. So this thing, you know, it's fairly expensive because all the traffic control they've got to do, it's night work, and then they have to reinstall the traffic loops to control the traffic lights. So it's a much needed segment of road, and we wanted to just deploy all the dollars that you guys approved in our streets. So, Councilmember Clausen?
Yes, and I wanted to just, thank the council, not that it was me, it takes the entire council to make this kind of a decision, and I certainly appreciate it because, $1 million is a drop in the bucket for what we need to do long-term on improving, our cities, but it is a major step forward from what we've been able to do previously. And the other thing is, I know you mentioned this last change order deals with the roadway in front of Lowe's, but there's so much more that has been accomplished within this $1 million throughout the city that it is truly exciting. And, once again, Jay, progress.
Councilmember Trenary?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, for giving us a description of where this traffic light is residing at this point. I'd like to ask a question. Is there, and I don't think anybody here has the answer, but is there any way we can stop or slow down that washboarding effect that is at that turn lane going into Lowe's, coming westbound, I would say, across the interchange? There seems to be, you're coming downhill a little bit, and there seems to be some sloughing or pushing of that asphalt to create quite the washboard there. Is there any way anybody looked into the potential of slowing that washboarding down some? Because that's absolutely horrible.
It's gonna get corrected, but you're right. I mean, it's a lot of commercial vehicles traveling through there, and it'd be a really, long-term, the solution's gonna be the roundabout that gets built there.
Let's just repave it at this point.
Yeah, we're gonna solve it for now, but you're right, it's a well-traveled, and it's a slope, and a lot of commercial vehicles driving it. Councilmember Clausen?
Yeah, and by no means am I an engineer, but I think that coupled with the heat that we've been having, which softens, and when you have large equipment driving on it, and those braking movements, it has a tendency to roll it up. So I know in my world, when we deal with transit buses in areas that we know that there's going to be a lot of movement of transit coaches and slow maneuvering type things, it's concrete, it's not asphalt.
I was going to ask, what could we do concrete instead?
And then you have the traffic loops too, so.
Yeah.
Which is, long-term, the solution is just the roundabout that gets built there, but we can't do that roundabout until the state steps up and, fixes the interchange, which we continue to ask for. I don't believe we voted.
No, we
Correct.
haven't.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right. You'll be voting on the approval of change order number 1 to the Miles Resources contract for the citywide paving project. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the change order has been approved. We're to item E, which is adoption of a resolution approving the purchase of a tire changer and a tire balancer for the Equipment Rental Revolving Fund. Ms. Jackie, this is you again.
The city requires equipment to assist the city's mechanics to work on the city fleet efficiently and safely. The 2023-2024 biennial budget includes funding in the Equipment Rental Revolving Fund 500 for a tire machine for this purpose. The city has an interlocal agreement with purchasing cooperative Sourcewell, City Contract CO 75-14. Pursuant to the city's policies, staff identified a tire changer and tire balancer manufactured by Mohawk Lifts as the desired equipment for the purchase. The city's Public Works Department then identified Mohawk Lifts as an approved vendor for the desired equipment, awarded via Sourcewell Contract 013020 MRL. Staff reviewed the procurement process utilized by Sourcewell for this contract, confirming the procurement requirements were met and obtained necessary documentation regarding procurement. On July 12, 2023, pursuant to the city's procurement procedures policies adopted as resolution number 073-23 as amended, Public Works staff requested and received a quote for the tire changer in the amount of $8,598.77 and the tire balancer in the amount of $15,506.54 for a total of $24,105.32 from Mohawk Lifts for a professional tire changer balancer. On July 13, 2023, the city's Public Works Department completed the interlocal agreement purchase checklist for Mohawk Lifts. Staff confirmed the quoted price is consistent with the pricing set out in the Sourcewell contract and that all applicable statutory procurement requirements were met. The 2023-2024 budget includes $15,000 in the Equipment Rental Revolving Fund 500 for the ER&R equipment. Due to rising prices and supply chain issues, the cost of the tire changer and the tire balancer is higher than budgeted by $9,105.32 for a total cost of $24,105.32. The ER&R budget has funding to cover this increase. Staff recommends adopting a resolution approving the purchase of professional tire changer and elite balancer and in accordance with the city's Equipment Rental Revolving Fund 500 policies and the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Councilmember Chang.
I move to adopt a resolution authorizing the purchase of a maintenance equipment in accordance with the city's Equipment Rental Revolving Fund 500 policies and the 2023-2024 biennial budget.
Second.
And by Councilmember Chang, a second by Councilmember Cacciardi. You know, with the addition this last.
Clausen.
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 Okay.
Sean isn't here today.
Sean's not here. You're Clausen. This is, so, you know, we've added a second mechanic, and it's just given us the capacity to do more of our own work. And we haven't had this equipment to change our own tires and to mount them and balance them. So this is, you know, a great addition to the equipment that we have out there to allow us to be more efficient in the work we're doing out there. So, Councilmember Clausen.
I just think if you expect work, you need to provide the tools to folks to be able to do it. Great investment.
Tools to do the job, yep.
Other comments or questions? All right, you'll be voting on a resolution approving the purchase of a tire changer and a tire balancer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the approval of the equipment has been approved. We're to item F, which is the July 11th council meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Councilmember Burrows, Pepe.
Mayor, move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Rosa Pepe, a second by Councilmember Terneri to approve the July 11th council meeting minutes. Any amendments or corrections that you see necessary? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. We had an item added to this evening's agenda, which is a resolution, adopting a resolution appointing Phil Albrights of Albrights and Associates PLLC as a hearing examiner. Mr. Bond, is this you or Ms. Archer?
I'll take this one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. Before you this evening is a resolution appointing a second hearing examiner to assist the city in its caseload. Mr. Olbrechts is a longtime city attorney and currently serves as hearing examiner for quite a few cities and public agencies in the state of Washington. Some high-profile hearings as well under his belt. The city identified him as someone who has current bandwidth to assist us with some cases that have stalled, as well as just the volume of cases that the city has throughout the year. Mr. Olbrechts is ready and willing to start immediately to assist us. You'll note his rate at $190 per hour, and he provided a very robust proposal with regards to all the terms associated and the costs associated, which are relatively minimal. The proposed term of appointment would be a one-year term with 3 one-year extensions available to the city. With a cap of $140,000, not to exceed for the entirety of that term. So under your municipal code, the council, the mayor appoints and the council confirms your hearing examiners. So this action this evening in this resolution would do two things. One, it would appoint Mr. Olbrechts and Olbrechts and Associates as a hearing examiner for the city. And then it would also authorize the mayor to execute a contract in a form acceptable to the city attorney with Mr. Olbrechts for those services. And I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Councilmember Terneri.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt a resolution confirming the appointment of Phil Albrights of Albrights and Associates, PLLC, as the hearing examiner for the city and authorize the mayor to sign an agreement for these services.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Terneri, a second by Councilmember Chang. Any questions of Ms. Archer? Go ahead, Councilmember Chang.
Yes, I want to applaud you for doing this because I know that we're waiting on a couple of conclusions. Is Mr. Olbrechts going to be able to go and help with those that we're still waiting on?
That is correct. He's confirmed he'll be able to review the video and issue opinions. We are still giving our current hearing examiner a short period of time to finish up on those if he's able, but if he's unable, then we would be able to transition that to
Great.
Mr. Olbrechts.
Thank you for doing that because we've been waiting a while.
Other questions or comments? Hearing none, you'll be voting on the appointment of a new hearing examiner. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, the appointment is been approved. All right, we're to, there's no discussion items planned for tonight. Council committee reports. I see the Economic Development and Tourism. I don't believe they've met, and nor has a meeting date been set because you're heading into summer break. Utilities Committee, I don't believe met either. Finance was scheduled for next week. That meeting has been canceled. We don't have any items. When we return in September, we'll be discussing the bonding for the City Hall is probably the big item that we'll be taking on. Transportation Committee, did they meet?
Yeah, we reported on it last time.
You reported on it last meeting. Chimes and Lights, I gave Cindy some bad news last week. We got the construction schedule, and we're not going to be able to have a Christmas tree in front of City Hall. So I think Cindy's going to reach out to the Port of Bremerton about placing a tree on the waterfront across the street is our plan B. But yeah, when we got the schedule, there'll be scaffolding and construction going on that side of the building, and it wasn't feasible to try to have a festival in the same space. Anything else to report on the festival, Cindy?
No.
Okay, I had to own it, so
Can we put lights on the scaffolding?
yeah.
Yes.
I don't know about that. Land use, I think you met last week. Does somebody have a report?
No, we reported last time.
You reported on that last time also? Okay. And lodging tax is coming in September, and sewer advisory is in September. So,
Actually,
what's that?
Mayor, I think that we're actually going to be meeting in October. October 4th is a possibility. There may be a meeting change on that.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll get that to the clerk's office as soon as it's ready. Let's see here. The mayor's report. I'm sorry that Councilmember Kachardi's not here to hear this. I have one.
You could write it up and send it to him.
Yeah, I might. So, we talked a lot about that permanent supportive house, and due to public processes and prevailing wage, it got too complicated. So there's too many unanswered questions at the deadline. We may apply next year, and it may be best if that house is built by a nonprofit versus us owning the house, and Nick and I looked at it for about $25,000 more than what we were going to do. We could go buy a house and not have to put all the labor into building a house and all that process. So we still want to build a house. We still want to, I think there's grant money out there for it, but there was just too many unanswered questions for us to, in good conscience, to go apply for a grant that we didn't have all the answers for, that and just, staff capacity. The splash pad, we're almost there. The construction's done. We're waiting on the control panel. It's an electronic component that makes it all work, and I'm saying it's a couple weeks out when we actually possess the part, and it'll take them about a week to get it installed, and then we have some testing we have to do, and the health department has to come over and sign off on it that it's working properly. So when we possess all the parts, we'll do some outreach and some social media to let everybody know it's coming. I'm hopeful by the end of the month. And if we have a warm September, that we've got it running for a few weeks or a month. So that's the goal.
I expect to see our mayor there in his swim trunks for that one.
Not heated.
With this rubber ducky.
Yeah.
We could throw softballs at it, right?
And as I'm required to update you on job descriptions and policy changes, we updated job descriptions for the permit center assistant, assistant planner, and the public works personnel positions. And City Hall, they started working today, pressure washing the brick. I saw construction trailers show up. I made a decision last week I just want to share with you guys. We currently have double hung windows, meaning both panes move. which have been problematic for us because they've got extra seals on them. So for security reasons, we don't want the windows to even open on the ground floor. And they currently do. And so we're going to have fixed windows that will look the same as the rest of the windows. Double hung windows, though, come split 2/3 on the bottom and 1/3 on the top. But we're going to go with single hung windows, meaning only the bottom half moves, and they come 50-50. So if you look at those windows over there, just have a little different appearance, that the split in the window will be down in the middle versus in the top third, but it's substantially less expensive, has fewer seals to wear out, and they should perform better according to the engineers. So, and go ahead, did you have a question?
Yeah, I do. I have a comment and a question. The comment is, I'm glad you pointed it out, as a construction trailer out here. I wasn't sure if the police chief was being relocated to a new office in the parking lot. So thanks for clarifying that. And the second was, you mentioned the ground floor windows not opening. Well, we have 2 ground floors, basically the first and second. So is that going to be applicable?
Anywhere where you could walk up and
Okay,
grab
so
a hold of a
the
window.
prospect level windows
Prospect
will also
level
be
will have
fixed.
fixed, they'll look the same,
Yeah,
they just
they're
won't
just
open.
fixed, okay.
And they'll be just fixed, yeah.
I suspect that would actually probably work better for the HVAC system and managing that.
The designers say, though, too, there are days where it's okay to open up a window and get some fresh air, but I don't know. Because we were talking at one point of fixing all the windows, and they recommended that we not do that. And then if you have a problem with the HVAC system, you have a way to ventilate. You know,
It's also
the
an
building.
emergency exit.
Yep. Although it's on the second floor.
Ladders.
I don't know if anybody noticed, but the house earlier, it was last week, that the Crawford house, the house on Crawford was, the code enforcement action was taken care of, and there was a number of vehicles that were towed in the last couple of days too. So, you know, we're serious about derelict homes and cars, you know, parked in yards and that type of thing. So it's sad that we have to take those kind of actions, but we will when it's necessary to protect our community. The demolition is actually more than started. It's done on the former Cheers Lighthouse site, and they're cleaning that site up, and the next phase will be the environmental cleanup that needs to happen, and they hope, if everything goes well with that, by this fall to start some vertical construction. So that's a pretty exciting project there. More progress.
Progress.
That's right. You know, and we've got, you know, we've been working 2 summers now, Melinda in Public Works and an intern, on cleaning out old records upstairs. And we came across some documents that we just kind of blew us all away. Back in 1955, there was a law passed by our state called the Subversive Activities Act, and you had to, all public employees had to sign an affidavit that they would not, they were not members of the Communist Party, or that they would not take actions to overthrow our government. It was in 1964, the Supreme Court, though, ruled that it was unconstitutional to make employees sign such an oath, but we found some of these documents in the upstairs, so that was interesting reading. And, you know, I look at old name minutes. I didn't really find anything worth reporting on from 100 years ago or 75 years ago, but I did find precedents that the chief's vacation needs to be approved by the city council from 50 years ago. The city council took action to approve the Chief Dow's vacation from August 26th to September 4th. So, you know, I don't know why, but the city council approved the police chief's vacation.
I might shed some light.
Sounds like another work study session.
Well, I think for a while there was an ordinance that required he or she to attend the council meeting, so that might have been what the issue was, is that the only way you could get out of not coming to a council meeting is the council had to approve it.
Yeah, could be. Also, 50 years ago, the city council received a request from the Square Steppers Square Dance Club to hold a square dance demonstration from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. on September 15th behind Jordan's Department Store. Both Parks Furniture and Jordan's Department Store approved of the request. So we had festivals on the waterfront even 50 years ago, and they were just a little different. So that concludes the mayor's report. Let's see here. Report of the department heads. Jackie Brown, I know you got exciting news. I'm not going to spoil your surprise.
I so appreciate that, Mayor. Yes, I have several things to report. I was informed, thank you, Mayor, late this afternoon that we were successful with our bid with the Public Works Board for $1 million loan/grant for the Bay Street lift station. Finally, this is for, it's a pre-construction loan. It's for the preliminary engineering report and just the process of property acquisition. The reason that it's loan/grant is because when I went through the worksheets, I realized that Port Orchard qualifies as a disadvantaged community, so we may get some of the loan forgiven. So now I
And that
just,
Wonderful.
location's the one that's in the Ford dealership's parking lot.
yes, that we need to move.
If I may, I mentioned earlier about the Marina Pump Station being the point where all sewage goes to before it heads out. Everything on that side of the city goes through that pump station to here, so that it can get turned around and pumped back out to Annapolis. So that's also a key component to our utility system.
Extremely critical,
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Now I just have to get the Well 7 project, money for that. And the Sewer Advisory Council meeting has officially been moved to October 4th. I have confirmation on that now, so. And the last thing is the totem pole. On Monday, our crew will go up with a flatbed and pick up the totem pole. It's being painted this week. We're going to store it because unfortunately, us getting the pole back here kind of coincides with their macaw days. And so we don't want to try and have them do double duty. So the last week of August, probably the 29th or 30th is what we're tentatively looking at. And I expect to hear back from the macaw tribe in the next couple of days to pin that down further. And I did ask them if they would advise us of whatever their cultural ceremonies and things were so that we could prepare you for it.
Preferably the 30th, but thank you.
Yes.
Lund.
I have nothing for tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Bond?
I had one exciting announcement. We are holding a pre-application meeting with a developer on Sedgwick, and it involves a medical facility and some office buildings near Bravo Terrace that would also result in the construction of the Bravo Terrace roundabout. And so, fingers crossed, there may be a somewhat unexpected project moving forward that's going to provide yet another traffic fix to the city. And so, stay tuned for more information.
And more medical providers in our community.
Great.
Ms. Archer?
Nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
Chief Brown?
I'm sure you're all waiting on bated breath for our annual report. We are waiting on some cleaner statistics, so we're hoping middle of next week. Usually my goal is to have it out first week of August, but I figured you guys didn't want change orders coming, because I know that's usually a public works thing, so it should be to you guys next week. But as you guys have seen in the paper, we are continuing to struggle with some issues, but you'll have some clarity when that comes out next week.
Ms. Wallace?
Yeah, I have a couple updates for the council. So the clerk's office has been working on an electronic process for applicants to submit their lodging tax applications this year, as well as for the lodging tax committee members to review and rate and provide allocation recommendations to the committee electronically as well. So we're in the testing phase now, should be ready to go next week. so that's exciting. The other thing that we're implementing at the next council meeting, your agenda packet may look a little different, refreshed. I think the contents of it obviously is the same, your agenda outline format, that doesn't change. Just a little bit easier access for the public and the council to get those agenda packets easily, as well as for the departments to submit the documents to the clerk to process the packet in an easier, quicker, more proficient manner. So we're working through that, and hopefully, like I said, in the next couple council meetings, you will see a different version of the packet. So welcome any feedback that you guys might have on the refresh of the agenda. So more to come. That's all I have.
And we're to, let's see here, citizen comments. We're to our second citizen comment period. So if you'd like to address the council, you have 3 minutes. Step on up to the microphone and state your name for the record.
My name is Claudette Desjardins. I have spoken with the planning committee, so I say that some of this is going to be the same and some isn't. I am grateful to be here. Thank you for providing an opportunity to speak. Miracles happen not in opposition to nature, but in opposition to what we know of nature, St. Augustine. I have a copy of 298 signatures signifying a unification of caring. It reads, "The below signatures come from the people of our community and friends who wish that the elder, meaning older, redwood tree remain uncut from the neighborhood of 791 Mitchell Avenue. This is an act of caring only, coming from diverse awareness of the inhabitants who are cognizant that the tree is a being that provides oxygen, shade, biodiversity, beauty, etc., which add to its being there. It is a part of history, here longer than most of us. Science, biology, chemistry helps with climate change. Spirituality, religion, or not, to mention a few. Just like each of us, young people are included if they wish, and copies will be given to the city and the builder. Thank you." This was canvassed by foot. I wish you could have been there to experience the general enthusiasm during conversations, the exchange of individual experiences, and what the individuals offer to the community, and some perspectives on their expectations from the city. Walks of life consisted of the police, fire, postal work, teachers, realty, forestry, store management and owners, government workers, gardening, to name a few I was aware of. There was a combination of retirees, students, and the next generation, along with various races and ethnicities. One lady explained she teaches language to middle school students who come from both Russia and the Ukraine. The police person has a redwood on property also. A retired forester came to look at the tree. A Dutch Bali gentleman had 2 children stationed in Poland. An exchange of awareness was also passed during the conversations. One teacher indicated the clearing of the school district where they were employed. Another signee indicated that the Wood Street, Mile Hill, was also having an issue by a Salmon Creek of a removal. I have some pictures that I brought, and I'll share those with you.
You can hand them to the clerk.
Okay, and I also have the list of the signees. I have, on some of the pictures, there's some extra vegetation that was enhanced that property, and then I just had some extra of the tree itself, so that if you wanted to look at it, you could. These pictures are of the tree which a helpful council person suggested, and some other surrounding vegetation which is missing on all but one, which show the beauty. Though nothing can replace being in the presence of it. It would be to one's benefit to
Ma'am,
take...
your time is up this evening.
Already?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else wishing to address the city council this evening?
Just a reminder that we do have the finance director online via Zoom.
After I close citizen comments, I'll come back to the finance director. He wasn't here, so I missed him. Others wishing to address the council? Anybody online, Brandy? Use the raise your hand feature.
There's one person online, but they have not raised their hand.
All right, I will close the second citizen comment period, and I will now call on the finance director, see if he's got a staff report.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to briefly mention for the full council that we have begun our audit with the State Auditor's Office, and the mayor and myself have already conducted our risk assessments. We have Councilmember Clausen scheduled to conduct his risk assessment tomorrow, and then we are starting our entrance conference on Friday. So if any of the council members would like to attend, please let us know in advance so that we can plan appropriately if more than 3 or 4 of you want to join, so we avoid a quorum. But I did send out the email invites today, so please look for that. And if you'd like to attend, please let us know.
Okay. Thank you, Noah. Anything else?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything for the good of the order this evening? Councilmember Rosepepe.
Just wanted to let the, council know, as we have some robust discussions coming up in September, one of the items that we've talked about has been non-political signage in right-of-ways, specifically signs, on temporary signs, I guess is what we would call them. I just spent a long weekend in Pacific County bike riding over several distances, and I can tell you how noticeable it is to be riding along and see no signage except for some occasional political signs. So I think that's an item well worth discussing, and how we can make our city look a little bit more presentable. So that's my good of the order.
Any other good of the orders? Okay, and we are still on for an executive session this evening for about 10 minutes?
Correct.
Okay, so we are going into executive session. There is no business that would be conducted after the executive session. And
Correct.
I'll let the attorney state the nature of the executive session that we're about to go into for 10 minutes.
The council will enter into an executive session pursuant to RCW 4230-110 subpart 1 subpart I to discuss the legal risks of a proposed action when public discussion may have adverse legal or financial consequences.